Hi guys, how are you doing today? Hope you're all having a sunny day. So, are you ready for new crazy stories I've prepared for you? Let's go to the first one. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My judgment isn't the best when it comes to my ex. We were college sweethearts, so there's always going to be feelings there that cloud my judgment. I can't deny them, or the fact that I still love her, even if I'm not in love with her. We married a few years after graduation. Things were good for a long time, but soon we ran into typical issues lots of couples face. Issues with finances, stress from jobs, kids, and taking each other for granted. We gradually grew apart, and I failed to recognize that she was pulling away. By the time I recognized it, she had already fallen for another man, current boyfriend. When I confronted her, she claimed they were only having an emotional affair and denied sleeping with him. I don't know if I believe that even now, but she was certain she wanted a divorce and moved in with him not long after the confrontation. I was devastated and tried to win her back, but she had moved on by that point and was focused on building a new life together with her new man. She said she didn't even want to try to make things work and would not consider counseling. So I decided the best thing I could do was accept her decision and try to make our split amicable for the sake of our kids. We divorced, but remained on the friendliest terms we could, all things considered. About 10 months after the divorce was finalized, she came back and said she'd made a mistake. I didn't believe her and didn't respond, but she kept contacting me and asking me to give things another try. I eventually agreed to see her, and we ended up sleeping together. That was almost 5 months ago, and now she tells me she is pregnant with my baby. We've been sleeping together frequently since that first time, so it's definitely plausible. She claims she is 100% sure it is mine because she didn't sleep with her boyfriend or anyone else at all during the conception window. She says she will give me a DNA test as soon as possible, but wants to try to make things work and attend counseling until we can do the DNA test. If the test comes back negative, she promises she will leave me alone and accept we are over. I'm conflicted about what to do. I have no guarantee that it is my child, and no guarantee that it isn't. I have no plans to get back together with her, but she says that if I abandon her, i.e., refuse to give things another try, then she'll go back to her boyfriend and have the child with him. I badly want to just ignore her and assume it's his, and let him deal with it. He wanted her, so she can be his problem. Would I be the a-hole if I didn't tell him and decided not to have anything more to do with what she claims is my baby? It may be relevant to note we have 2 kids together. You would be the a-hole if you didn't get a DNA test to see if the child is yours. Not an a-hole for not telling the boyfriend, because that is not your responsibility at all. Unless, of course, you get the test and the kid turns out to be yours. She can tell him on her own, or wait for the DNA test. You can't abandon your kid because your ex is terrible, in the case where the kid turns out to be yours. Also, that would not be a secret that could be kept long term. You are right to worry that all of your kids would be very upset at you for being a deadbeat when the truth finally came out. For the question at the end, would you be the a-hole if you just ignored the situation? You would be the a-hole. You had S with this woman knowing she had a boyfriend. Regardless of what she thinks, and even regardless of the responsibility you may have in the situation, it's a jerk move to know that she cheated on him and not say anything to this man. The man should know his girlfriend was cheating on him, and X doesn't seem like the kind of person to tell him. That's my subjective option. But, objectively, stick around for at least the peace of mind of a DNA test. If it is your baby, that would make you double the a-hole if you didn't tell him. You have a responsibility to that child, and owe it to that man that he doesn't raise someone else's kid. Everyone sucks here. Holy hell, this poor baby is going to be born into a complete cluster duck, no matter what the test says. Also, I'd advise you to keep in mind that even if the baby isn't yours, they're still going to be the half-sibling of your current children. You're not going to be able to just make that kid vanish. I, 27 female, have a 6-year-old stepdaughter, Becca, with my husband Kevin, 30 male. 50-50 parenting plan with his ex, Wendy, 32 female. I've been in Becca's life since she was a baby, and no, I was not an affair partner. They mutually chose to split up long before I met him. His ex is super high conflict, tries to keep me from spending any type of bonding with Becca, and just is constantly harassing my husband, me, and his family members. That is in the process of being handled in court. Basically, she's nice when she needs something, and we try to all work together for Wendy. And she's insane when we disagree on something, or just randomly when she feels like being crazy. You never really know when she's going to lose it. Well, Wendy got her car repoed, and she's been out of a car for a while, taking lifts when she can and getting rides from people. Well, her week came up, and she had no one available to give her a ride to pick up Becca from school, so she called me. I'm currently pregnant, and the last thing I want to do is interact with her. She just recently emailed my mother asking her to talk to me and tell me to stay out of parenting business so she can raise her daughter properly. Insane. She doesn't even know my mom, which means she searched the internet for her info. Basically, she asked if I would be willing to drop Becca off to her. I said no. She tried being nice and begging. I said no. My husband was working, so he couldn't do it. I picked up Becca and brought her to our house, and Wendy wasn't able to pick her up until 3 days later. My husband said that's her problem, and if she doesn't have the means to even pick her up from school, she has no right to treat me and him the way she has and expect me to help her. On the other hand, my friend is a single mom, and she told me that's not how you co-parent, and I, or my husband, should have put our differences aside to let Becca see her mom. Becca did not care and was happy to stay with us. She was also able to call and speak with her mom whenever she wanted, which she didn't, and mom never called to speak to her. I don't know. I'm not a bio mom yet. Will be soon. So maybe I'm missing the mark. Wendy is obviously pissed and accusing us of alienation. The paragraphs and calls are non-stop. Co-parenting is tough. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. The parenting plan says whoever's week is starting needs to arrange for Becca to be picked up, either by them or a trusted pickup person. This was explicitly explained as if you can't find someone other than the other co-parent to bring Becca to you, then you forfeit your parenting time, and she stays with the other parent until you can arrange a pickup. This was put into the plan because my husband and I were exclusively doing all the pickups and drop-offs to Wendy's house. Both my husband and I told Wendy she is more than welcome to call Becca to talk to her, but she never called. And Becca said no every time we asked if she wants to call mommy to say goodnight, and would get upset. Wendy is not an aggressive parent from what we know towards Becca, just a bare minimum parent, and does all the classic high conflict things, withholding her when she doesn't get what she wants, sending her in tattered clothes when it's swap day, harassment, etc. We also spoke to Becca about what she wanted to do. We explained that mommy is having car trouble. She knows Wendy doesn't have a car, and asked if she wanted to be dropped off to mom's. She said no and was excited to stay with us. We both asked her separately and together to make sure. Each time she said no. She also said no thank you when we asked if she wanted to call mommy to say goodnight. Not the a-hole. This is the consequence of being a high-conflict person, not willing to peacefully co-parent. People tend to avoid those that are rude and unpleasant, and certainly don't do them favors. However, if she is a good mother, I would have dropped her off for Becca, not for the ex. It took her 3 days to get an Uber? What about public transport? Would that not be an option? Not the a-hole. You're in for a long, miserable time with your husband's ex. I always wonder if it's worth it. Not the a-hole. Some context. I, 42 male, am a single father of 3 kids, 16 female, 14 male, 10 male. I also like to make things, especially clothes, and anything that lets me sew. I've made a lot of clothes for my kids, especially my daughter, who I'll refer to as Sarah from here on. Every dress she owns I have at least altered, if not made entirely. We have a tradition where I make her a dress for special occasions. Example, her birthday, Christmas, getting good grades, weddings. Sarah owns a lot of dresses at this point. The issue started back in June when I asked Sarah to go through old dresses and tell me which ones don't fit, have tears, other damage, and which ones she doesn't want anymore. I was shocked when I found the dress I made for my sister's wedding in the get rid of box. She wore it for 2 weeks before the wedding every day. It wasn't damaged and in really good condition, which was not a shock since she takes very good care of her clothes. I asked her if she really wanted to get rid of it, as I could try and make it fit her still, since it wasn't that small on her, but she said she didn't want it anymore. I couldn't in good conscience throw it away, and selling something that had such happy memories seemed like a waste. So I asked around in my family if anyone wanted it, but no one was interested. While trying to figure out what to do with the dress, my sister and niece came to visit. My niece fell in love with the fabric of the dress, saying how pretty it looked and all that. So I decided I'd make her a teddy bear with the fabric and give it to her as a birthday present. Fast forward to this Monday at my niece's party. The gift opening starts and my niece picks my gift and reveals the teddy bear. My niece loved it, but when I looked at Sarah's face, she looked angry. Sarah pulled me aside and asked how I could turn her dress into a stuffed animal. I asked what she meant. She told me to get rid of it. She assumed I would have just sold the dress or given it to a family member. I tried to explain, but Sarah wasn't having it. She said I destroyed the dress, and she was hurt that I'd do that. I talked with some of my seamstress friends, and they're mostly split, saying I either did a good job reusing fabric to make something special for my niece, or that I'm a jerk for destroying something sentimental of Sarah's. My family is mostly on my side, but my mother says I was insensitive to Sarah's feelings. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Insensitive to her feelings? How? She was willing to throw it away. It can't have been that sentimental to her if she didn't care where it ended up. This is a learning experience for her. Definitely not the a-hole in any way, shape, or form. Not the a-hole. Your daughter didn't want it, and you asked her to make sure. She is only 16, so it's quite understandable, but I'm afraid to say she needs to learn to grow up a bit. Also, I think that's a lovely way to give new life to unwanted clothing. I'm sure your niece will treasure it for many years. Not the a-hole. She tossed the dress into the get rid of pile. You even double-checked with her. Whatever emotion she's feeling are valid, of course, and it doesn't sound like she made a scene, so she's not an a-hole either. But maybe she needs to process things a little differently and be more explicit about her expectations at 16. She probably got taken for surprise when she saw that and didn't know how to handle it well, as she's still a kid. But you didn't do anything wrong. I dated my ex for 3 years before he abruptly dumped me with no explanation. I found out I was pregnant shortly after, and I chose not to tell him, because I knew he and his family would make me get rid of it. I was raising my son alone until 8 months ago, when his lawyer contacted me to inform me my ex wanted a paternity test. Now, my ex is in our son's life, which would be okay if he didn't keep trying to get me to give him a second chance. For the last 5 months, he's been sending me and our son gifts weekly, saying all of the right things. He's won over all of my family and friends who thinks he's wonderful, but I don't trust him. The biggest reason I don't trust him is that he claims he knew I was pregnant and had given birth to a boy, but he won't tell me how he knew or why he never contacted me until 8 months ago. Nobody seems to understand why I'm not falling all over him already, and they keep trying to convince me to give him a chance. My cousin, sister, and some of our friends were all talking about it recently. I was getting more annoyed the longer the conversation went on, since they all know I don't like talking about him. When they started saying I was his one that got away, I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I yelled at them. I said things like if they thought he was so great, they were welcome to him, that they were all too blind and stupid to see he was up to something, and that I wasn't his one that got away, because he threw me away himself. I ended up leaving because they just kept arguing with me, and I was already regretting saying anything, and I didn't want to say anything worse. My sister told me the day after that I was acting like a bee because I was upset I had to share my son with him, and I needed to not take it out on other people. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Trust your gut instinct. Just keep doing you and raising your son. You don't have to be together to be successful co-parents. Try talking to the baby daddy and tell him that you don't want to get together, but that you do want to have a healthy friendship and co-parenting relationship. Have a genuine heart-to-heart with him and be honest about how you feel and that you don't see him in a romantic way anymore. Not the a-hole. You're not obligated to be with anyone, least of all the ex who abandoned you without reason. Set clear boundaries with your friends and family. If they don't listen, go low contact. As for the ex, do everything through the courts. That way, if he bails, you have legal recourse. Not the a-hole. Dig your heels in. He dropped you like a sack of potatoes. And you had so little trust in him, you hid the pregnancy for fear that he'd somehow force you to get rid of it. Snacks and flowers don't fix that. They need to back off. Make it a boundary. If they can't keep the conversation off you getting back together with your ex, you're leaving. I, 24, have a 26-year-old sister and a 23-year-old brother we'll call Jake. I also have a 12-year-old brother we'll call Ryan, and he's the reason for this conflict. When Jake was a kid, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but doctors didn't think he would make it to 12. Jake wasn't just the baby of the family, but also the only boy. Our parents really wanted a boy, and always said it was a good thing Jake was a boy, because they didn't want to have a fourth kid. You see where this is going. Ryan was born when Jake was at his sickest, and Jake knew Ryan was supposed to be his replacement. Jake has been in remission for a decade, and he has always hated Ryan. Our parents also don't dote on Ryan like they did or do Jake. It's obvious to me that they regret him. They are perfectly adequate parents to Ryan when Jake isn't around, but when he is, they ignore him so Jake doesn't get upset. On Thanksgiving, Jake said he was thankful for his parents and sisters. Ryan was upset that he wasn't counted, and our parents ended up telling him off and sending him to his room. Ryan has been miserable ever since. He keeps asking me why Jake hates him. I decided he needed to know the truth, so he knew it wasn't anything he did. He was sad after I told him, but he thanked me for being honest. Last night, Ryan confronted our parents. They are furious with me. They demanded that I call Ryan and tell him what I said was a mean prank. They said I had no right to tell anyone their business or make up horrible conclusions. I didn't make it up. I know the truth. Am I the a-hole for telling it to Ryan? Not the a-hole. Your brother deserves to know what happened in the family before he was born. You just behaved like a big sister. Besides, it's better that he knows it's not his fault or anything that he did. That can lead to a lot of unnecessary self-hatred that he absolutely doesn't deserve. Also, your parents could really use some therapy. They don't seem aware of what they're doing and how badly it can affect Ryan. Or they know, and they miserably dismiss it. Either way, not good. Not the a-hole. Your parents, however, are a-holes of a scale I can't even begin to imagine. Treating their youngest as surplus to requirements because their first son ended up being okay is reprehensible. Not to mention viewing him as a replacement, were Jake not to survive, as if a child is some kind of commodity. Ryan will grow to resent them, and it would not be a surprise at all if, when he is an adult, he cuts contact with them entirely. I'm sure that at that point, your parents will do a surprised Pikachu face and find it mystifying that the son they neglected and emotionally hurt wants nothing to do with them. Very clearly not the a-hole, but Jake needs to get over it. It is not Ryan's fault he was born, and he has a long road ahead when it appears half his family is rooting for his failure. Jake is in remission and an adult now. He should act like a grown-up and help protect his brother from his parents, who are the real a-holes here.